series organized and presented by Antiques and Design Center and sponsored by VNM.com. It's my pleasure to introduce David Lindquist this afternoon, well-known author and lecturer who has been a full-time antiques dealer, appraiser, and authenticator since 1974, and now works as consultants to appraisers throughout America. David's books are indispensable to appraisers and collectors, and his series of 35 programs on antiques air regularly on Home and Garden TV. David lives in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where he is an active participant in the local community through leadership in arts and charitable fundraising. Last but not least, David and his daughter Elizabeth are the owners of Whitehall Antiques at the Villa, an iconic source for fine antiques. Welcome, David Lindquist.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and we'll get cracking because this lecture does take just about an hour to get down with your questions and so forth, and please feel free to ask questions. Give me the first 15 or 20 slides to kind of get through ideas and basic information, and then holler out if something doesn't get clarified. Our main goal today, what to know before you buy. Well, what to know before you buy? A lot of times people say, oh, I've already bought it. I said, well, then go home and see what you bought. That's fun too. And if you made a mistake, chalk it up to experience, learn from it, and don't make the same mistake twice. And for those of you who are designers, it's great to have these keys to knowledge and to be able to share that with your clients to say, you know, did you notice the feet are restored? Did you notice this has happened? Did you notice that has happened? This is the type of thing that we want to see. You know, this is the type of thing that says it's an antique as opposed to something that maybe isn't quite as legitimate as its glossy exterior might lead us to believe. So that is our goal today. I did bring some business cards primarily for this reason. Any of you who need your continuing education points, either for the American Society of Appraisers, the International Society of Appraisers, or any of the design groups that I've lectured to over the years, they do provide, you do get your continuing education CEUs, so I'll be happy to sign a card for you if you would like that. All right, so our goals are awareness of common fakery, awareness of the qualities of antiquity. And you know, we're not talking about antiquity, although I'm going to show you a fun slide in a moment, but things that are 150, 200 years old, that sort of thing. Using your senses and your common sense to guide you, believing in your instincts. If you think it stinks, it probably does stink. And knowing when to ask for expert help. There are two things that you should expect to find in all handmade furniture, which is all antique furniture. And that is how they were constructed. And there are really only two ways that they were put together in a sophisticated way, and then good old nails are the third way. Everybody knows what nails look like. So one is the mortise and tenon joint. That is a rectangular hole with a rectangular shaft and glue. Sometimes augmented with a peg, a pin. Either term is correct. You're welcome to use either one, and you're talking about the right thing. What it ain't is a dowel. If it's perfectly round, it's a dowel that was made by a machine. That is not part of the world of antiques. So we're looking for mortise and tenon construction. We're looking for hand dovetailed construction. And that's the picture we see at the top. We see variation because you cannot saw, you cannot draw the same thing twice as a human being. But our friendly machine that comes along about 1870 never screws up at all. You know, it's perfect every time. Doesn't need to draw that little scribe line because it knows where to cut. So those are the things we look for. We look for that little scratch line to show the cabinet maker where to quit sawing. We look for differing amounts of shape from one spot to the other. Hand dovetailing. You'll hear over and over again, oh, you know, dovetailing was invented by the Dutch in the 1600s, and that's what made it possible to do beautiful cabinetry, to make things hold together well, to make thin drawers that were beautiful, and that sort of thing. And I always thought that was probably true. I mean, I read it in all the books until I was wandering through Egypt and happened to notice that all of the temples were put together with a double dovetail or some joint, and that's what kept the blocks from pulling apart. And so the stone had a wooden sort of a bow tie effect, this double dovetail or butterfly, you'll hear it called, that held it together. And the Egyptians were using dovetailing, and they were using mortise and tenon to construct their furniture that we see resurrected from the tombs from 4,000 and 5,000 and 6,000 years ago. This is a piece that is in Williamsburg, Virginia. It's a linen press. It was made about 1770 in the Anthony Hay Workshop, a wonderful workshop in Williamsburg. And some years ago, Wallace Gusler, when he was head of furniture, said to his staff, let's make it again, but let's not put it together. Let's show people what goes into making a piece of furniture in the 18th century. And so it was all wonderfully constructed and hanging from little fish wires, and we went in and took loads of pictures at the time. But you can see how many parts go together to create this one piece of furniture. Look at the drawers, the sides, the backs, the fronts, the bottoms, all multiple parts. Now, the very important thing about the fact that it's multiple parts is that every single one of those multiple parts is susceptible to damage, loss, and replacement. And the more authentic and original a piece is, the more valuable it is. So, of course, we want to look at all of those parts. This is a wonderful example of a floating frame construction. We have our mortise and tenon. In addition to that, we have two little tenons there and one at the bottom to sort of position this panel to float within this frame so that as shrinkage takes place, because the cabinet maker understands shrinkage, he won't get a crack or a split in his door. So that's a sign of good cabinet making. The feet on this happen to be multiple block. There are two ways to protect this decoration that's out here, which doesn't do anything. You either stack it, and that's London and some American cabinet makers who are London trained or Edinburgh trained. You don't see it a lot, but when you do, you should say, oh golly, that's exciting, because it takes a whole lot more time to glue all those pieces together than it did to make one little vertical block and stick it in there. So one little vertical block means a less expensive, less valuable piece when it was made. And it is your clue to understanding that when you see that, you should say, must have been a good cabinet maker, must have had a wealthy client, willing to pay for the best, because these last forever. Those other little things pop off pretty easily. When that happens, of course, you end up with this big piece of furniture sitting on these beautiful decorative elements which originally never touched the ground. All the weight was on this. All the weight was on that square or rectangular block stuck in there. This is decoration. And of course, that means that's probably the first thing to get damaged, because as these rot, as these get knocked off, as they fall off, then the piece begins to rest on this, and lo and behold, one day, these get broken as well, because they're not designed to handle that much weight. So that's something to always look very carefully at. Are the feet original? How were they blocked? Now, I said, got lots of parts. Sometimes pieces lose parts deliberately. This is 1890, 1910, English little serpentine sideboard or server. And there sits the middle drawer. Anytime you see a piece of furniture, a sideboard that has this lovely open form here, always check out very carefully inside to see if you see little nails that have been holes that have been filled, and work done in here to hide the fact that it used to have a drawer at the bottom and somebody ditched the drawer, because they're more valuable and they're more beautiful and they're more elegant when they don't have that heavy drawer, when they come up beautifully. So if it's right, it's a plus. But if it lost a drawer, it's a minus. So you need to check that out. You'll really impress your clients if you're looking at a sideboard with them and you say, I think I'm going to get down there and make sure this is authentic. I mean, they will really believe you are on top of the situation, and that's very important. The other thing, that, of course, they can lose things. They can also gain things. All of this furniture is gaining a new skin. And this is taking place in England in a Happy Workman at Work. This was an oak chest on chest in the background, period, nice, period, authentic piece. Now it has burl yew wood and walnut skin instead of an oak exterior. Check it out. Pull the drawer out and see if there are holes on the inside that don't come through to the outside. That's the easy way to know that it's got a new skin. Then if all the holes have been drilled through, because, you know, some cabinet makers who are doing this, they just can't stand to mess up all this work that they've done of putting this new skin on by putting a hole everywhere there was a hole. So that's the easy giveaway. Then the other thing is to look at the thickness of the veneers, because 20th century veneers are very thin compared to 18th and 19th century veneers. This beautiful chair is in the Victoria and Albert Museum. It's one of their treasures. It's made in the Chippendale taste, in the garden style, with these wonderful cattails. Can anybody tell me what's wrong with that chair? There's something wrong. Don't be shy. The seat. Okay, that's a possibility. It's leather, it's studded, but it's okay. That's not it. The height of the arm, a little weird, a little high, I agree, but there's something even more interesting about those arms.
The fact that they are there.
The fact that they are there. Well, yes, because you know what? Any guy who could plan and design that leg and that back would not make arms that look like that. It's incongruous. And the alarm bell should go off. There's a very easy way to check this. Side chairs are generally about 19 to 22 inches wide. Armchairs are generally 23 to 25 inches wide. So if you measure this across here, and lo and behold, it's only 22 inches wide or so, you have confirmation that your gut instinct that said fishy arms was right.